Wow, thank you all for being here. Let's take a breath together this morning as we continue to talk about blessing and the transformative power in blessing. How many people practiced blessing during the week last week? Okay. How many people are willing to practice blessing? Really? I didn't see a lot of hands on that. How many people are going to be willing to be willing? To be willing to practice blessing. Because it's all about our willingness to practice. Even if we can't quite get there, it's all about our willingness to do that. The transformative power in blessing, in the act of blessing, not of blessing, something that's laid on top of, but something that comes from the inner, that comes from within us, the blessing that comes from our heart. And as Ernest Holmes says, blessing is directing a positive thought toward any person or any condition. A blessing is a positive thought directed toward any person or any condition. And that's what we have. We want to have positive thoughts that we direct toward people or toward conditions. And sometimes that's easier than others, is that right? Yeah, so let's keep in mind, though, a positive thought that we're directing toward a person or a condition is a blessing. And that's the consciousness we want to be in at all times. The definition that we've been working with, that we're going to be working with this month is wishing for another person from the bottom of our hearts in total sincerity, the very best for them. Wishing for another person from the bottom of our hearts in total sincerity, the very best for them. I'll say it once more. Wishing for another person from the bottom of our hearts in total sincerity, the very best for them. Now, that definition sometimes is more difficult to get to than the other one, directing a positive thought. But wishing the very best for someone from the bottom of our hearts in total sincerity is a little bit more difficult sometimes, would you say? And that's what, last week I was talking about bless your heart. And that's what made me, I talked about that because when we talk about total sincerity, using the phrase bless your heart is not always, it's not always what it sounds like. And it's not always in total sincerity. It's not always from the bottom of our hearts. Those words aren't. The thought behind them sometimes can be from the bottom of our hearts. But we really want to get to the place where we can bless others. We can bless a situation. We can bless a circumstance. We can bless a condition from the bottom of our hearts in total sincerity and really, really mean it when we're wishing the best for someone or for a particular situation. And with all the things that are going on in the world today, blessing is needed more than ever. Blessing is needed more than ever. Wishing the very best for someone, even those people we disagree with, even those people that we have nothing in common with. We have to learn to bless because that's what changes things. That's, we always want to do something. I had someone stop at the back door to say to me, okay, but what else besides blessing can we do? And that's how people feel. What else can we do besides blessing? Well, let's start with blessing. Let's start doing that. If you want to do something, let's start doing that. Let's start blessing. Because we can't have, as I said last week, we can't have closed hearts while we're blessing. We can't have judgment and hatred while we're blessing. If you want to see a change, if you want to see something different, we cannot have the same consciousness that created the problem. The solution has to be from a different consciousness. The consciousness that created the problem is not the same consciousness that's going to solve it. And so we complain about all the things that are going on. We complain about the things we don't like. We complain about how we want things to be different. And we have the same consciousness while we're complaining that created the problem, whatever it may be. So what we have to be willing to do is to shift our consciousness so that we can bless a situation, we can bless a person. That doesn't mean we aren't doing anything, but we're moving to that place of being. And we get into that place of being as we get into that place of shifting our consciousness, of deepening in consciousness, of elevating our consciousness so that we can reach a higher plane and then take action. If there's more action that we want to take, we take action from that plane. The author of this book analogized changing consciousness to being on a plane, and on takeoff, there's a lot of fog and a lot of rain, maybe a storm even. And as you take off in the storm and in the fog, you can't see out the windows hardly. But as the plane rises and rises and rises and goes through the clouds, there are blue skies, there's sunshine, because the plane was able to rise above the storm, rise above the fog, rise above the mist, rise above all those things that are at lower levels. That's what happens with us in consciousness. That's what happens with us in consciousness. When we set our intention to deepen in consciousness, it takes us to a higher level. And we get to that higher level by continuing to do our spiritual practice, continuing to do those things that keep us focused on the truth, that continuing to practice the presence of God, continuing to know the truth in whatever situation. And every time we do that, we continue to rise, and we continue to rise, and we continue to rise until we're at that level where there's high vibration, until we're at that level where we can from that place see the stuff and see what needs to happen. See what we can do. That's not to say that we have to do nothing on the physical plane, that we don't take any action on the physical plane to make change happen. However, the change starts from within. As within, so without. As within, so without. As within, so without. So it starts from the inside, and then it begins to manifest on the outer. And that's where we are with blessing. So this week we're talking about the golden rule, a message from the universe, practicing the golden rule. The golden rule, whenever I hear that, it reminds me of elementary school. I remember a few years ago when I was in elementary school. Oh, that was cute, wasn't it? I remember a few years ago when I was in elementary school hearing about the golden rule, and I loved it. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. How many remember that? Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. How many practice that? Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And then when you got up in junior high school and maybe high school, college, wherever, you start to hear, do unto others before they do unto you. And you went through that cynical phase in life where you start to hear all those things. But it comes back to the bottom line of doing unto others as we would have them do unto us. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. That's our message from the universe. And it is because it's so universal. All faith traditions, all of the world's religions have a golden rule. They have different words, but it means the same thing. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Do unto others as you would have it done unto you. And as I said, the wording is sometimes different, but it's the same concept. It's the same idea. It's the same guidance that we receive. It's universal, that golden rule. The Arizona Interfaith Movement has a golden rule banquet every year, in April every year. And faith traditions from all the faith traditions come together and attend this banquet and participate in this banquet. And at the very beginning, they have people, usually kids, from each of the faith traditions coming onto the stage to recite the golden rule in their tradition. And it is a beautiful thing to see. It's a beautiful thing to experience. We had a chance, the board and some of our members and some of our practitioners had an opportunity to go to that banquet this year. I've been going ever since I've been in Phoenix. But we had a chance to go this year. There are over 1,000 people who attend that banquet every year. And it is wonderful because that's what it's all about. Throughout that whole time that we spend together, there's a big dinner and a big program and music, and they're honoring different people who really practice the golden rule in their communities, in the city, and in the world. It's a wonderful, wonderful opportunity. If you get a chance to go, check out the Arizona Interfaith Movement, check out their website, and you'll see when the Golden Rule Banquet comes up. But the wonderful thing about it is we're reminded over and over and over again throughout that time of the banquet and beyond of what it really means to practice doing unto others as we would have them do unto us, and what it really means to send that blessing out into the world, because practicing the Golden Rule is a blessing. It is a blessing, because if I do unto you as I would have you do unto me, I'm blessing you, and I'm blessing myself. As I do unto whoever it may be, as I'm blessing them, I'm practicing the Golden Rule. This is how I would want to be treated. And so this is the way I'm going to treat you. And so beginning to practice it in every area of our lives, practicing the Golden Rule in every area of our lives, is really one of the first things that we have to learn to do. One of the first things that we have to learn to do is setting our intention to really practice and to really live the Golden Rule. And to recognize, number two, that we have to be the change that we wish to see. If we want to see change, if we want to see peace, we have to be peace. Is anybody breathing? If we want to see love, we have to be love. If we want to see prosperity and abundance, we have to be prosperity and abundance. If we want to see health and wholeness, we have to be that. If we want to see compassion, we have to be compassion. It's real simple. We have to be what it is we wish to see. Because again, what we're looking at is what we're looking with. So the only way you can see peace is to be peace. And it has to come from each one of us. We can't meet anger with anger. That's the same consciousness that created the problem. So when there's anger, lashing out is not the first response. When you're confronted with anger, or when there's somebody that you're watching, and recently it's been more people that we watch on TV that makes us angry, it seems, than others. That's what I hear a lot of. That's what I hear a lot of complaints about, of people that they see on TV, and people are complaining and talking about how much they hate a particular person or a particular group or a particular whatever. That's meeting the problem with the problem. That's meeting the problem with the consciousness that created it. That's meeting the problem with the consciousness of hate. And no, you don't like what you're seeing, but the first thing you want to do is burst into blessing. Burst into blessing, and the way we do that is to bless other people in the area where they need the most work, it seems, where they need the most help. When you're looking at illegal activities, when you're looking at corruption, when you're looking at hatred, bless that person in their integrity. I bless you in your integrity, in your ability to develop integrity. I bless you in your ability to practice love. I bless you in your ability to release anger. I bless you in your ability to practice compassion. I bless you in your ability to learn how to be peaceful. I bless you in your ability to be inclusive. That's how we start. And we do that within our own minds, and we do that with our own hearts. And sometimes it takes a minute for us to get there. I really get that. It takes a minute for us to get there sometimes to bless another person in what they need the most, what they need to express the most. Because what we are looking at is what they are not expressing. And so to bless them in their ability to express what they need to express means that we're seeing the divinity in them. And this is what Ernest Holmes says about blessing, is that we look beyond the appearance. We look at the divinity in another person. And that's how we get to bless them, when we see their divinity beyond what the outer appearance may be. And that's what's important for us when we start to bless another person. As I said last week, blessing is very close to forgiveness. Very close to forgiveness. It's very close to prayer. But what it is most of all is looking beyond the appearance to the truth and seeing God within everything. Seeing God within that person, seeing God within that situation, seeing God within that circumstance, seeing God within everything. And sticking to that, hanging with that, and continuing to bless, continuing to bless, continuing to bless. And do you know, as we do that, it opens our hearts and it begins to send out a different vibration. That's how, that plane is rising. It takes us to a different level. And as we go to a different level, everything around us begins to shift. Everything around us begins to change as we bless. Everything around us begins to change. Everything around us goes to a higher level. That's how we bless ourselves and bless the world and bless the other people also. That's how change happens. It takes us into a place of being the change because we are the blessing when we're blessing. In this book, The Gentle Art of Blessing, the author tells a story of a woman walking down the street behind two men, and one of them turned off to go into a store. And as he started into the store, his wallet fell out of his pocket. And he didn't know it, so he just kept going. The other man rushed over, picked it up, looked through it, and then put it in his pocket and kept walking. And as she kept walking along without saying anything, the first man who had lost the wallet came rushing out of the store frantically looking for his wallet, trying to find it. But first of all, when the man put it in his pocket and walked away, she blessed the man who took the wallet. She just said just blessing for him in his truthfulness and honesty. And so he kept going. And then when the other man came out looking for his wallet, the first person who took the wallet and put it in his pocket came back and handed it to the person who had lost it. And he looked at the woman and said, "She told me to bring that wallet back to you." She had not said a word to him. But that's how it works. That's how it works. The energy of her blessing stopped him dead in his tracks, and he had to come back. That happens over and over. I bet you can think of situations in your own life where things have come up like that. There was no logical explanation for why somebody shifted on a dime, somebody turned on a dime. There was no logical reason that we could see or think of, but when you are sending good juju out, when you're sending good vibes out, when you're sending blessings out, when you're sending out vibes of love, that's the vibration that's out there, always, always. That's the vibration that is permeating everything. And it goes from me to you. It touches each one of us. It touches everything around us. That's how we make changes. That's how we become the change we wish to see. In blessing. In blessing. Blessing whoever it is that really upsets you when you turn on your TV. And you all know who it is because you tell me about it at the back door every Sunday. And if we go someplace together, you tell me about it then. And I'm saying, yeah, but you gotta bless the situation. You gotta bless the person. You gotta bless the people. And they say, I'll bless them, but I really hate them. And I was like, no, that's not the way that works. That's not the way that works at all. That is not the way it works. The way that it works is you take a deep breath and you just say, I bless this person. I bless this person. I bless this person in their ability to tell the truth. I bless this person in their ability to love. I bless this person in their ability to do whatever it is that we would have change. And when we do that, our hearts open, and then we will begin to be guided to do those things that we can do. Because we want, as I said, we want to do something to make change happen, and we can do something to make change happen. But we want to do it from a place of openness and availability and love and oneness. That doesn't mean we don't hold people accountable. That doesn't mean we don't require certain types of behavior from people. That doesn't mean any of that. It just means we don't walk around with a closed heart and ticked off all the time. It just means that we are able to stand in our truth of knowing who we are and recognizing the divinity in that person that we're holding accountable. But so long as we're covering them over with our anger, so long as we're covering them over with our hatred, so long as we're covering them over with our criticism and judgment, there's no way that we can see them and the divinity in them, because we're looking at their ignorance. We're looking at their ignorance. Ernest Holmes says that evil is nothing more than ignorance. Evil is nothing more than ignorance. Ignorance of spiritual laws that govern this universe. Ignorance of our oneness, that there's only one life, one power, one presence, one mind. Ignorance of, that the power and the presence of God is within everything, in every situation, every circumstance. Evil is able to come forward because there's the ignorance there. And so we begin to bless situations in their enlightenment, blessing people in their enlightenment, their ability to see the light, their ability to learn the truth, their ability to change. That's what we want to do. And so the last thing I want you to keep in mind is let the golden rule be a guide and not a goal. A guide and not a goal. Don't set your goal to follow the golden rule today. Just allow it to be a guide in your livingness, in your beingness. As you walk through this world, as we walk through this world together, as we walk this path together, let's set our intention to let the golden rule be a guide for us and using it as a blessing as we walk through this world. As a guide, we will allow ourselves to practice empathy, to put ourselves in another person's shoes, to think about how we wish to be treated if we were in that situation. Now, our first thought may be, well, I certainly wouldn't be acting like that if I were in that situation or if I were in that position. Well, maybe we wouldn't, but we'd be acting however we act, and we would like for people to be empathetic, to be supportive, to be open, to be loving, to be understanding. So how can we practice empathy in any situation with any person or any situation we find ourselves in? How can we practice compassion? Practice compassion wherever we are, whatever we're doing, whatever we're seeing, whatever we're experiencing. Practice compassion toward another person. We would like others to practice compassion toward us because sometimes we miss the mark, believe it or not. Sometimes we miss the mark. Sometimes we fall short. And we'd like for someone to have compassion with us as we fall short. We may not fall short in the same way they did, but we're not measuring who's more wrong than the other. It's just that I'd like for someone to practice compassion toward me. So I practice compassion toward others. And that's really important. The Dalai Lama said, if you want to make others happy, practice compassion. If you want to be happy, practice compassion. So we have to practice compassion toward others and practice compassion toward ourselves. We have to be helpful to others. Be helpful to others. Finding ways that we can help. Finding ways that we can be a part of the solution and not the problem. How can I help? What can I do? And maybe sometimes just keeping our mouths closed is a good way to be helpful. Right? Yeah. Sometimes just keeping our mouth, not saying anything, not giving an opinion, and we all have one. But sometimes we have to just refrain from doing that and just learn to be helpful, learning to be supportive, being courteous, even when we're driving. Being courteous, even when we're driving, keeping all those fingers on the wheel. All 10 of them while we're driving. Even when people cut us off. Even when people cut us, especially when people cut us off. Or when people are tailgating, or the road ragers, or whatever. Just blessing people in their cars, blessing them in their peacefulness, even when they're not acting peaceful. And just really being in that place of being courteous, being kind, being helpful, however we can be. However we can be, allowing that blessing of the golden rule to be a blessing. Allowing it to be a blessing in our lives and to bless everyone with whom we come in contact. Blessing everyone with whom we come in contact. There was something that just went right out of my mind that I was about to say, but at any rate, the important thing for us to keep in mind is that as we bless, we are blessed. And as we are blessed, this is what we're taking out into our personal, individual lives, and this is what we're taking out into our community, and this is what we're taking out into the world. And so really, really making a commitment to be what we want to see, and really making a commitment to whatever change we want to make, whatever behaviors that we'd like to see be different. You know, it starts with our thinking. That's what I was going to say. It starts with our thinking. We have to bless with our thoughts also, because our thoughts lead to our words, and our words into our behavior. So thoughts lead to words and behavior. So when we're starting with blessing, we're starting with our thoughts. When we're starting with practicing the golden rule with our thoughts, we start with our thoughts. We start with our thoughts because thoughts are things. We start with our thoughts, and then with our words, because our word is creative. We're always creating with our words, the words we speak. Hafiz says the word you speak becomes the house you live in. The word you speak becomes the house you live in. And so unless you want to live in that house of anger, unless you want to live in that house of discomfort, unless you want to live in that house of judgment, unless you want to live in that house of love. If you want to live in a house of love, speak words of love. Speak words of blessing. And so this is what I'm inviting us to do again this week. It's to practice the golden rule. It is to live the golden rule, and to live it and to allow it to be a guide and not just a goal. And we can stop in each and every moment of each and every day and each and every situation in which we find ourselves and ask, how would I like to be treated in this situation? What would I like for someone to be thinking of me right now? What would I like for someone to be saying to me right now? How would I like someone to be talking to me right now? Do unto others as we would have them do unto us. In every area of our lives. Bless others just as we would want them to bless us. This is how we live the fullest life. This is how we get to experience the allness and the fullness of God. Ernest Holmes says that the power of God is like a sleeping giant within, waiting to be awakened and released into the world. The power of God is like a sleeping giant within, waiting to be awakened and released into the world. And it's awakened to the degree that we allow it to awaken within us. And as we allow it to awaken within us, we can then allow it to be unleashed into the world through us as our very livingness. As our very livingness. That's how we become, as I said before, that's how we become transparencies for God. That's how we become a transparency. So that when someone sees you, they see God. When you see me, you see God. When we see each other, we see God, because there's a transparency there. There's nothing to block it. There's nothing to keep it away. There's nothing to keep it hidden, because we're rising above it. We're rising above that fog. We're rising above that turbulence. And sometimes it gets pretty turbulent as we start to rise. And we just keep going, just like fasten your seatbelts. If you're in a plane and you start to rise and you hit that turbulence, you got to keep those seatbelts fast and stay in your seat until it gets to that place of smooth sailing. smooth sailing, and that's where we want to get to. So practicing, really, really practicing the presence of God with your spiritual practice, whatever it may be, and the way that we treat each other, not just in this room on Sunday mornings, not just in this community when we're here on this campus, but from the moment we open our eyes in the mornings until we close them at night. Really, really, really practicing the presence, really, really, really being in spiritual practice all the time. It's not something we sit down and do. It's something we walk around doing all the time. So blessing is something we can walk around doing. It's a silent action that we take. And so I'm inviting you again this week to practice blessing in everything you do, everywhere you go, every person you meet, every car you pass on the highway. When you wake up in the morning, blessing your government, blessing the leaders, blessing politicians, blessing co-workers, blessing family, blessing ministers, blessing, blessing doctors and patients, and blessing everybody and everything. That is so, so important. So I invite you to do that, and I'm going to ask you about it again next week. Did you practice blessing this week? Did you practice the golden rule this week? So I want you to hear me on your shoulder, in your head this week as I ask you, did you practice? And if you're saying no, just hear me asking, are you willing? Are you willing to try it? Are you willing to do it? Are you willing to make that change? Are you willing to be a part of a better world, a more loving world, a more peaceful world? Let's turn within. As we just take a deep breath together, just moving into that place where we know and sense and feel the presence of God. Just knowing that this presence of God is the only presence. The only presence that is the presence of God. That presence is the only life there is. That presence is the only being that is. That presence is the only breath that is. That presence is the only. That presence is my very life. That presence is the life of us, each of us here this day. Each of us here this day. That presence is our very life. It lives and it moves and it has its being in each of us, just as we live and move and have our being in it. And so I speak a special word of blessing for all of us this day. Blessing each of us in our willingness to change, in our willingness to be the change we want to see, in our willingness to do something different, in our willingness to open our hearts and open our minds and allow the peace to come through us. Allow the love to come through us. Allow the joy to come through us. Allow the harmony to come through us. Allow all of the God qualities to be expressed in and through and as our very lives, and that's how it becomes a part of the world in which we live. So I know that as we do this, we let go of the stuff that doesn't mean anything, that's not real. We let go of that stuff that would hurt, harm, or endanger us if we allowed it to. And we turn to that place within us that can never be hurt, harmed, or endangered in any way, by anything. And so we release ignorance and we embrace enlightenment and truth and the awareness that we are each and all made in the image and likeness and out of pure spirit itself. And we see pure spirit wherever we go. Wherever we go. Wherever we go. We see that presence of God. But that presence of God is always with us in the midst of every situation and circumstance. And healing is happening in our own individual lives, and it's happening in the world around us because we walk with the healing wherever we go. We take it with us. I pause momentarily now so that you may speak the names of anyone you'd like held in prayer this day. You may speak their names silently or aloud, and you may speak them now. And so for all those whose names were spoken here this day, I'm just knowing that God is right where each of them is right now, blessing and keeping them. For all those who are experiencing loss and pain and suffering of any kind from recent events that have happened here and around the world, God is in the midst of it all. We look beyond the appearance to the truth that God is, always. And so I speak a word of blessing for everyone everywhere. I speak a word of blessing for this world, blessing this world with peace, blessing this world with love, blessing this world with harmony, blessing this world with an awareness of truth, of oneness, of the presence of God. I know indeed that all is well. All is well, for all is God. And so I simply say, thank you, Father and Mother God. Thank you, infinite presence. Thank you, divine Mother. I just allow it to be now. And so it is.